Lord, I ask that you will help us all to unite and remember Ramona and other people who, like her, had to go and leave our world and leave us with so much pain.
On May 10th, the body of Ramona Moore was found dumped alongside an abandoned house, assaulted and murdered. She had been brutally beaten about the face, head, and chest.
May 10th, 2003, 1:15 p.m., a phone call that was so heartbreaking. I know about the missing girl. Kings Highway. Look behind the abandoned house. The voice was cold, anonymous, then silence. El Carmichael had been waiting for this call for 46 days. 46 days since her daughter Ramona walked out their front door to grab food at Burger King. 46 days since a 21-year-old honors student at Hunter College simply vanished off the streets of Brooklyn. When police arrived at that address, what they found was extremely haunting. A young woman's body, decomposed beyond recognition, wrapped in a blanket like garbage. But this was just the beginning. The basement where Ramona died would reveal the darkest corners of human evil: chains, restraints, evidence of torture that lasted for days. Two predators who had turned kidnapping and murder into their twisted entertainment. What happened to her family afterward exposed a system that failed her twice. First in life, then in death. This is the story the police didn't want to investigate, the case that almost never got solved, and the anonymous phone call that finally brought two monsters to justice. Welcome to Crazy Dark Files. Right now there are countless people like Ramona Moore whose stories remind us of the dangers many face every day, often unnoticed and unheard. If you want to help raise awareness about missing persons, the importance of justice, and the signs that could save lives, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Your support could help bring attention to someone who needs it most. But the real question is, what happened in those 46 days? What did the police miss? And could Ramona Moore have been saved? To understand what was stolen from this world, you need to know who Ramona Moore really was. October 8, 1981, Georgetown, Guyana. Ramona Gail Amanda Moore entered the world to parents who had nothing but dreams. Her father worked construction, her mother cleaned houses. They lived paycheck to paycheck in a country where opportunities were scarce and hope was a luxury few could afford. But they had a plan. America, the land where immigrant children became doctors and lawyers, where a little girl from Georgetown could become anything she wanted. When Ramona was 8, they made the leap, packed everything they owned into 2 suitcases and landed in New York City with $200 and a prayer. East Flatbush became home, a neighborhood where Guyanese families clustered together, speaking Creole on stoops, cooking curry and rice in tiny kitchens, rebuilding their lives one day at a time. Ramona's mother, El Carmichael, worked 3 cleaning jobs, office buildings at night, houses on weekends, whatever it took to keep her daughter in good schools. Her father picked up construction work when he could find it. Every dollar they earned had one purpose: Ramona's future. She was their only child, their entire world, and she lived with 5 cousins who became her siblings in a cramped apartment where family dinner meant 8 people around a table built for 4. But that table was filled with love, with laughter, and with constant talk about Ramona's achievements. Her Uncle Clifford pushed her the hardest. When she showed him a report card full of A's, he didn't celebrate. "That's nothing," he told her. "Anyone can get an A. All I want you to do is maintain that. That's the difficult part." And she did. Ramona Moore never earned anything less than an A from elementary school through college. She chose psychology for a reason. She wanted to help people overcome trauma. Growing up in an immigrant household, she'd watched family members struggle with the psychological wounds of leaving everything behind. She understood pain. She wanted to heal it. By 2003, she was a third-year honor student at Hunter College. Her professors were amazed by her work ethic. While other students partied, Ramona was in the library until closing time. She had papers to write, internships to apply for, graduate school applications to perfect. But she wasn't all work. Every Christmas, Ramona made it her mission to buy gifts for everyone in the family. Didn't matter if she only had $20, everyone got something to unwrap. Her cousins still remember her laugh. Infectious and genuine. She could quote romantic comedies word for word, made mixtapes for friends, spent Saturdays hunting for bargains and sharing her finds with anyone who'd listen. Her dreams were crystal clear. Graduate from Hunter, get into Columbia or NYU for graduate school, become a therapist specializing in childhood trauma, open a practice right here in East Flatbush, helping immigrant families navigate the American dream while healing from the American nightmare. She wanted to buy her mother a house. "Mama worked 3 jobs for me," she'd tell friends. "I'm going to work 3 jobs for her." Spring 2003 was everything falling into place. She was dating someone the family approved of, had landed a summer internship at a local clinic, was excited about presenting her research on PTSD and immigrant communities. What do you think made Ramona stand out in her community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Ramona's routine was clockwork. Up at 6 o'clock, a.m. commute to Hunter College in Manhattan, classes all day, part-time job at a local daycare where the children adored her, home by 7 o'clock p.m. to help her younger cousins with homework, church every Sunday. Never stayed out past 10 p.m. without calling home. April 24th, 2003. Her last normal day. She attended psychology classes, turned in a major paper on PTSD that she'd spent weeks perfecting. Her professor later remembered she seemed excited about an upcoming presentation. Called her mother at 6 o'clock p.m., like always. "I'll be home for dinner, Mama." 6:55 p.m. Ramona Moore walked out her front door wearing jeans, sneakers, carrying a small purse. "I'm just going to get something at Burger King," she told her mother, 3 blocks away. 5-minute walk. She'd done it hundreds of times. But in 15 minutes, everything would change. She would never make it to that Burger King. While Ramona Moore was building a future, 2 predators were planning her destruction. Troy Hendricks, 22 years old, a violent criminal with a rap sheet stretching back to his teens, assault charges, drug dealing. He lived in a basement apartment on Snyder Avenue, just blocks from where Ramona walked that night. But this wasn't just any basement. Hendricks had been preparing. Chains bolted to the walls, restraints, soundproofing materials. Neighbors would later tell police they'd heard construction noises, strange sounds coming from below. But in East Flatbush, you minded your own business. His partner was Kason Pearson, 24 years old, street name Monster, and he'd earned it. Multiple women had accused Pearson of sexual assault over the years. None of those cases were ever prosecuted. He walked free, bragging to friends about breaking in victims. Both men were alleged members of the East Flatbush blood set. But this wasn't gang business. This was predation, pure and simple. They knew these streets, knew the patterns. Young women walking alone after classes, students coming home from part-time jobs. They'd been hunting for months, identifying targets, learning routines. Hendricks' basement wasn't just his apartment, it was a carefully constructed torture chamber. He'd invested time, money, and planning into creating the perfect prison. Thick walls to muffle screams, multiple restraint points, tools of torture readily available. They weren't opportunistic criminals. They were systematic predators who had turned kidnapping and torture into their entertainment. And on April 24th, 2003, they found their next victim. April 24th, 2003. A Thursday evening that started like any other. 7:15 p.m., Ramona stopped at a friend's house to pick up a borrowed CD. Her friend would later remember how happy she seemed. talking about weekend plans. A presentation she was excited to give. Her summer internship starting soon. Just a normal college student living a normal life. Meanwhile, Hendricks and Pearson were driving the neighborhood. They knew these blocks intimately, knew which streets were poorly lit, which corners didn't have security cameras, where a young woman might walk alone. 7:30 p.m., Ramona left her friend's house. 3 blocks to Burger King, a 5-minute walk she'd made hundreds of times. Church Avenue to Remsen Avenue, turn right, almost there. She never made it. Witnesses would later tell police they saw a young woman talking to 2 men near a car. Not struggling, not screaming, just talking. Maybe they asked for directions, maybe claimed they had car trouble, maybe pretended to be lost. Whatever lie they told, it worked. By 7:45 p.m., Ramona Moore was in their vehicle. By 8:00 p.m., she was chained in Hendricks' basement. The Burger King security cameras would confirm she never walked through their doors. In 15 minutes, a brilliant young woman with her whole life ahead of her had vanished without a trace. Her mother was still setting the table for dinner, expecting her daughter to walk through the door any minute. But Ramona Moore would never come home again. What happened next defies human comprehension. Hendricks's basement apartment on Snyder Avenue. Low ceilings, 1 small window painted black to block out light, to block out hope. This wasn't a home. It was a dungeon. Chains bolted to the walls. Restraints, makeshift torture devices scattered around like tools in a workshop. The apartment had been soundproofed just enough that screams wouldn't carry to the street above. Neighbors later told police they'd heard strange noises coming from the basement, banging, muffled sounds. But in a neighborhood where people minded their own business, no one investigated. For 3 days, Ramona Moore endured unimaginable horror in that basement. Prosecutor Anna Sega Nicolazzi would later tell the jury, Ramona Moore's injuries are indescribable. The horror she endured, the torture she endured will become clear. She was chained, beaten with dumbbells, burned with cigarettes, attacked with knives, saws, hammers, subjected to repeated sexual assault. The medical examiner would confirm the systematic nature of the torture. This wasn't random violence. This was prolonged, sadistic cruelty. But perhaps the most shocking testimony came from Rolando Jack. Jack was a friend of Hendricks. He stopped by the basement during Ramona's captivity. He saw her chained, beaten, clearly a victim, clearly suffering. And he did nothing.
So this female laying there, yeah, she had a little bruise. She had bruise on one of her hand and one of her feet, and she was bleeding from the middle of her face, and one of her eyes was swollen. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Yo, it hurt in my head, it hurt in my stomach. I couldn't even think straight.
He saw a young woman being tortured to death and treated it like background noise. For 3 days, while Ramona's family was frantically searching the streets, posting flyers, begging police to investigate, she was alive in that basement, suffering, fighting to survive. Her mother was calling her cell phone every hour. Her cousins were walking the neighborhood with her picture. Her uncle was contacting politicians demanding action. But the police had already closed her case. You women her age sometimes don't check in, they said. April 25, 2003, one day after Ramona disappeared, L. Carmichael walked into the 67th Precinct in East Flatbush. Her daughter never came home last night, never called. This isn't like Ramona. The desk sergeant barely looked up. How old is she? 21. Ma'am, many women her age fail to check in with their families for benign causes. She's probably with a boyfriend. Give it a few days. El Carmichael knew her daughter. Ramona called if she was going to be 5 minutes late. Something was wrong. I need you to open a missing persons case. Sorry, the law sucks. She's over 18. We can't do anything. Case closed. No investigation, no paperwork, no effort. April 27th, 2003. 3 days after her abduction, After enduring torture that would break the strongest person, Ramona Moore was murdered. Her body was wrapped in a blanket like garbage, dumped behind an abandoned house on Kings Highway, left to decompose while her killers went about their normal lives. Hendricks flooded his basement, trying to wash away the evidence, trying to erase what he'd done. Both men returned to their routines, hanging out with friends, going to parties, as if they hadn't just tortured and murdered an innocent woman, as if Ramona Moore had never existed at all. But here's what makes this story even more devastating. That same week, across the river in Manhattan, another young woman went missing. Svetlana Aronov, a white woman, a rare book dealer from the Upper East Side. 3 hours after Aronov was reported missing, NYPD launched a full investigation. Press conferences, search teams, her photo plastered across every news station in the city. Meanwhile, in Brooklyn, Elle Carmichael was making photocopies of her daughter's picture at Kinko's, spending her own money, walking the streets alone, taping flyers to telephone poles. The contrast was impossible to ignore. When a white woman disappeared in Manhattan, it was breaking news. When a black woman disappeared in Brooklyn, police said, "Give it a few days." April 26th, 2 days missing. Carmichael contacted ABC News hoping for coverage. They called the 67th Precinct for comment. The police told the media the case was closed. Her daughter had been missing for 2 days and they'd already given up. The Carmichael family took matters into their own hands. They printed hundreds of flyers, knocked on doors, contacted local politicians. City Councilman Charles Barron started making calls, demanding action. Finally, under political pressure, the NYPD agreed to reopen Ramona's case. April 28, 2003, 4 days after she disappeared. But here's the cruel irony that will haunt this family forever. Ramona Moore was murdered on April 27th, 1 day before police resumed their search. If they had acted immediately, like they did for Svetlana Aronov, Ramona might still be alive. This is 2003 Brooklyn post-9/11 America, where your zip code, your skin color, and your family's accent determined how hard anyone would look for you when you vanished. When a young black woman disappeared in East Flatbush, police shrugged. When a white woman went missing in Manhattan the same week, they held press conferences. This is the America Ramona Moore lived in, where not all missing persons are created equal. Do you think the justice system treats all missing persons equally? Share your thoughts below. While the official investigation stalled, Hendricks and Pearson's appetite for violence wasn't satisfied. Days after murdering Ramona, they struck again. A 15-year-old girl, walking home from school, same neighborhood, same tactics. They lured her to the same basement where Ramona had died. But this victim fought back. After being sexually assaulted and bound with duct tape, she did something extraordinary. She licked the adhesive on the tape covering her mouth until it loosened, worked herself free while her attackers slept. She escaped, ran to police, gave descriptions, provided evidence. This brave teenager's testimony would eventually solve Ramona's case. Her courage gave Ramona's family the justice the system had denied them. But first, they had to find Ramona's body. May 10, 2003, 46 days after Ramona vanished. Elle Carmichael's phone rang at 1:15 p.m. The voice was unfamiliar, male, calm. "I have information about the missing girl. Go to this address on Kings Highway. Look behind the abandoned house." He hung up. Carmichael called the police. This time they responded. Officers from the 67th Precinct and emergency service units raced to the location. Behind a burned-out house, they found what they'd been dreading for 6 weeks. A blanket wrapped around something that was once a human being. Ramona Moore's body, decomposed beyond recognition. Dental records would confirm what her family already knew in their hearts. The anonymous caller's identity was never determined. Someone knew what happened to Ramona. Someone with a conscience finally spoke up. But who? And why did they wait so long? That mystery remains unsolved to this day. With Ramona's body recovered, police had a murder case, but they still needed to catch her killers. The break came from that brave 15-year-old survivor. After her escape, she gave police detailed descriptions of her attackers and the basement where she was held. The location matched the Snyder Avenue area where Ramona had disappeared. Police quickly apprehended 19-year-old Troy Hendricks. He was already known to authorities. Held at Rikers Island on pending charges, but by law, detectives couldn't question him about Ramona's murder yet. His partner, Kason Pearson, had vanished. Police launched a massive manhunt across the tri-state area. Pearson had an arrest record: burglary, assault. Tips poured in, leading investigators to locations throughout Brooklyn and Albany, all dead ends. The search expanded far beyond New York. Information led them all the way to Atlanta, Georgia, where local police raided an apartment where Pearson was supposedly hiding with his girlfriend. Empty again. Then came the tip that changed everything. Pearson's own friends contacted police. They were sickened by the crimes he was accused of and knew about the ongoing manhunt. They gave police an address, an apartment in Yonkers. May 21, 2003. A little after 5:00 a.m., Yonkers police set up surveillance outside the apartment building. They weren't taking any chances this time. Officers called the apartment, trying to convince Pearson to surrender peacefully. He refused. The woman whose apartment Pearson was in returned home during the standoff. She handed police a key, but the door was secured with a chain. Bolt cutters were needed to get inside. As authorities breached the apartment, Pearson had already barricaded himself in the bedroom, pushing a bed against the locked door. When officers broke through, they found the room apparently empty. Then Pearson burst out of a closet, knife in hand, lunging at the officers. 2 shots fired. 1 bullet struck him in the thigh. Kason Pearson was finally in handcuffs. During questioning, he initially denied any connection to Ramona's murder, but eventually he broke down and confessed, giving investigators disturbing details that were far worse than anyone had imagined. January 18, 2006. Nearly 3 years after Ramona's murder, justice finally had its day in court. Brooklyn Supreme Court. Opening statements began with prosecutor Anna Siga Nicolazzi laying out the horrific details. 2 juries, 1 for each defendant. Troy Hendricks, now 24. Kason Pearson, 25. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA. Witness testimony. The 15-year-old survivor ready to face her attackers. But these weren't ordinary defendants. January 19, 2006, day 2 of testimony. As court adjourned, Kason Pearson was being escorted from the courtroom when he suddenly pulled out a concealed knife. Without warning, he lunged forward and stabbed his own defense attorney in the back, repeatedly. Chaos erupted. Troy Hendricks saw his opportunity. He vaulted over the courtroom barricade and charged toward a bailiff trying to grab his gun. Security officers tackled both men to the ground as spectators screamed and dove for cover. Blood on the courtroom floor. A defense attorney rushed to the hospital. 2 defendants who had just proven they were capable of violence anywhere, anytime. The judge had no choice. Mistrial declared. Ramona's family watched their chance at justice slip away because these monsters couldn't behave even in a courtroom. But prosecutors weren't giving up. March 2006. The second trial began with unprecedented security measures. Both defendants shackled hand and foot, wearing black foam mittens so they couldn't grip weapons. Extra bailiffs stationed throughout the courtroom. Metal detectors, full body searches. This time there would be no escape attempts. The 15-year-old survivor took the stand, looked her attackers in the eye, described her escape from that basement of horrors. Her courage gave Ramona a voice from the grave. March 23, 2006. Both juries returned their verdicts. Guilty, first-degree murder, kidnapping, rape, sodomy, torture, every single count. April 11th, 2006, sentencing day. Life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 22 years for their courtroom escape attempt. Brooklyn District Attorney Charles Hines spoke to the press. "I am hard-pressed to find a more evil case. I am satisfied that these defendants will never see the outside of a prison cell. Justice for Ramona Moore, finally." But for her family, the fight was just beginning. After the verdicts, El Carmaki stood before the cameras with a message that shook New York City. "All I got was nothing but disrespect from the media and the police," she said. This was a Hunter College student, a black woman, racist. "It's all racist." She wasn't done fighting. While Svetlana Aronov got press conferences and search teams within hours, Ramona got dismissed and ignored. While white missing persons made headlines, black families were told their daughters probably ran away. El Carmichael was going to make sure this never happened again. She filed a federal lawsuit against the NYPD alleging systematic racial bias in missing persons investigations. The case gained national attention, forcing America to confront an uncomfortable truth about whose lives matter when they disappear. For 6 years, the case worked its way through federal court. August 2014, federal judge Naomi Rice Buchwald dismissed the lawsuit. Her ruling: no evidence of widespread racially motivated practice within the NYPD. But El Carmaker's fight sparked real change. City Councilman Charles Barron proposed the Ramona Moore Law, requiring immediate investigation for anyone 25 or under who goes missing. Hunter College established a scholarship in Ramona's name. East Flatbush organized neighborhood watch programs. Missing persons protocols were updated. Most importantly, people started paying attention when young black women disappeared. Ramona Moore's death exposed the system that failed her. Her mother's fight began to fix it. Today, Troy Hendricks and Kason Pearson remain locked away in maximum security prisons. They will never taste freedom again. The 15-year-old survivor rebuilt her life and became an advocate for assault victims. Her courage saved future victims. Ramona Moore was laid to rest, surrounded by the Caribbean community that loved her. Her headstone reads, "Beloved daughter, student, angel." She was a young woman who made Christmas special for everyone, who earned straight A's, who wanted to heal trauma in others. She deserved to graduate, to help families, to make her mother proud at her wedding, to buy that house for El Carmichael. Instead, she became a symbol of how indifference can kill, how some lives are valued less than others. But she also became a catalyst for change, a name that demands we do better. The anonymous caller's identity remains a mystery. Someone knew what happened to Ramona. Someone with a conscience finally spoke up. But the question lingers: why did they wait so long? El Carmichael continues fighting for missing persons reform. Her daughter's name lives on in scholarships, in laws, in the hearts of everyone who refuses to let another Ramona Moore be forgotten. This is 2003 Brooklyn, but it could be anywhere, any city, any neighborhood, any family. Every missing person deserves the same urgency, the same resources, the same chance at coming home alive. Remember that a 5-minute walk to Burger King should never cost someone their life. Remember that every person matters. Every family deserves answers. Every victim deserves justice. Remember Ramona Moore. Thank you for watching. If you have any suggestions for future true crime stories, let us know in the comments. Stay safe and stay vigilant.